saying that we will join next week other other traditional rulers will join next week. So I will not be able to get there, but some traditional rulers will join this week. People are very having, but the all of people cannot join this week. It's next week. And I get important things.
It's not their program. We can't have them on two sessions unless
No, unless
they are just going to join.
if you go they finish
Because we cannot stop. We cannot devote two sessions to what we call it. Yes.
Okay, so 1 minute to go. I will start in a second, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Igali had just called now to say that there are some traditional rulers who are joining us this evening. And of course, it's Sabina who took the call. No names of the traditional rulers, but that the Oni of Ife said they will join us next week
with others.
with others.
Okay, sir. I will find a way of extending it, sir. I'll think through something as we go on now. Okay, sir. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast this evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator.
How are you doing this evening, sir?
Well, I'm probably going to take over your job. Maybe you will take over my job and talk.
Oh,
Because I just got the recall that last week, at the end
yes,
of our program last week, we said maybe we will devote this week to the role of traditional rulers in foreign affairs.
yes, sir.
It hasn't been easy getting the program of their Royal Highnesses together. And I was only told 5 minutes ago that some will join us today, this evening, and then some will join us next week. Which now means that maybe we will, I don't even know, because one must not, protocol-wise, commit a faux pas by not giving proper recognition to their Royal Highnesses if they are on the program now. I don't know whether from your own, from the background of your people, they have immediately identified Royal Highnesses right now, so that one can, recognize them while we then roll over the program for the role of traditional rulers for next week. So we have to play this by the ear. That's really where I say I'm taking over your job. But I apologize. I was just told about 5 minutes ago about this.
Yes, sir. Okay. That's an interesting one. This is where I find out whether all the training from the 165 sessions that I've been having with you have actually transferred some of your knowledge to me. Because, all right, I think what I would do, sir, I would crave the indulgence of any of the elders that we have on the program to please call my attention if we see any of the names that join that are some of the royal fathers, so we can recognize them once they've joined. Of course, I can see a list of names that have joined, but I'm not sure if any one of them fall into the category of our royal fathers. But I'll keep an eye on the list, and I'd also ask some of the team. Ogechi, you're there, please. If you notice any of the names that are the royal fathers, please send me a direct message. And I think I can also see Professor Falode on there. If you see any name, please ping a direct message to me so I can pause when we get there and we can duly recognize any of those that have joined. Again, I will crave your indulgence. If you have joined and you are a royal father, please, if you can send me a direct message so I can at least know who it is and I will recognize. I think the challenge with online sessions like this, particularly when the video is not on, is that you don't know who is who. If it had been in a physical meeting, I could have at least seen someone walk in and then we recognize them. But on your point around the how we handle the program, I think we can start with some of the issues that we have, and we'll see how we'll go.
All right.
All right, sir. All right, sir. While we wait on other people to join, and as they come, there was the UK scene, sir, has been quite on fire. I would say in the last sort of 48 hours, and maybe a little bit more than that, that I'd like to hear your take, because I know we talk about the UK sometimes, and in this particular case, massive reshuffle in cabinet. For some, it's been a bombshell of an announcement on some of the reappointments into cabinet and those coming back into government. I don't even know where to start today, but sir, let me start with the cabinet reshuffle. What is your take about what has happened in the UK, sir?
I don't really think I want to get into the internal politics of the Conservative Party. I think in terms of our own mandate, it is the human rights angle that I think we should focus upon. Here is a country, Great Britain, who started off with the Magna Charta, that in a way had claimed to spread human rights to, if you like, practically all the countries in the world. And we have tended, even in this country, to say, no, we will not. Britain would not have done this. Britain would not have done that. The courts in Britain would not have done this, and so on. And here you are with the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, all the 5 judges. And incidentally, I will make an aside comment on that. But all the 5 judges telling the government, you cannot send illegal immigrants to Rwanda. It is unlawful, unconstitutional, a breach of your commitments to human rights. Now, first of all, I'm happy that it is all the 5 judges unanimously, because I was at a meeting quite recently when someone, you know, a high-ranking journalist said, how can all judges think along the same way? It must mean that some of them are not thinking. Judges are not all supposed to think along the same way. Well, here it is in Britain. Supreme Court, all the 5 judges agreed unanimously on a judgment. So come on, we know where some of us, you know, learning the feedback, picking up the virtues, you know, of our legal attitude. The second point that worries me is that a prime minister then gets up before the House of Commons and says, I am going to introduce legislation in this house to overrule the Supreme Court. And it's an abomination. I can't think of when last I had something like that. If the Supreme Court says this is it, then that is it. But to say, you know, and it shows that human rights is being battered all over the world by even people, by countries that we don't expect it to do so. He then said that even if the Supreme Court, if people then appeal the law to the European Court of Human Rights, he will introduce legislation to pull Britain out of the European Court of Human Rights. Oh, well, at that point, I figure we better start appealing to God to please save us from politicians who think that they know better than the obligations with human rights, whether at the national level or at the international level, had been put upon them. My third takeaway is this. So many countries in Europe have lost their elections because of immigration, so-called illegal immigrants coming in. But Gaddafi warned them, don't overthrow me. I am the one who is serving as a gatekeeper against immigrants flowing into Britain. If you overthrow me, there will be nobody to block this, and there will be illegal immigrants flowing into Britain, and there will be consequences. Now, Secretary of State for Home Affairs, one of, well, what they will call in England, important Secretary of State, has just lost her job over these human rights. These illegal immigrants. Even Brexit, Britain leaving Europe, was as a consequence of the British getting frightened about human rights, about immigrants coming into Britain. So you can see all the consequences of some of the bad decisions taken by European countries. So really, it is from that angle. I don't care whether a former prime minister comes back into government. I don't care whether that happens or not. It's the consequences for us, because we in the global south, we need to protect the concept of human rights. We need to protect the concept of human rights. And if the global north is now doing this, taking policy actions to the detriment of human rights, then, as I said, we then need to appeal to God.
Sir, let me touch on one point you mentioned there. The fact that the UK Prime Minister has publicly said he's trying to pass a law to override what has happened in the Supreme Court. And the premise of them trying to address the ruling of the Supreme Court is based on the fact that Rwanda was considered as a country that was not safe. Mm-hmm. And that was the bit that the UK government is saying they want to address. Because if they can address the issue of safety, then the law or the ruling of the Supreme Court is then something that can be challenged. Why would the UK government think it's even possible to override the Supreme Court? Is that possible in law?
it depends on the commons, and it depends on the the British don't have a written constitution. Therefore, the House of Commons and its relationship with the judiciary is a topsy-turvy one. The issue is, in fact, I think both Britain and Rwanda should be thrown out of the Commonwealth for their attitude towards human rights. How can Britain think that the British government think that it can change the human rights posture of, we have discussed this on this program, and the president of Rwanda makes no bones about the fact that he doesn't really have the time for human rights. He has the time for development of his country. He has no time for human rights. So how the British government then thinks that, is going to be able to change, to change the attitude of Rwanda towards human rights is what baffles me. But it's just this, that if we pass a law that overrides the British Supreme Court, and some people then appeal to the European Court of Human Rights, then it will bring legislation to pull Britain out of the European Court of Human Rights. In other words, the whole episode is about knocking down human rights, getting human rights out of the way. And that, I think, is what we should push back upon for our own safety.
Thank you for that, sir. So I crave your indulgence if I just take a pause here. I believe that we already have some of our royal fathers in the house. Given the fact that I cannot see the names, may I ask you to please unmute yourself, sirs, and let us know who you are. Apologies, I cannot see all the faces. I would have recognized and honored you as you came in. But if you are one of the royal fathers and you're already here, please unmute yourself. Let us know you are here and part of the conversation. Any royal fathers in the house?
Yes, my name is Ambassador Ahmed Nubomali, Emir of Zozo, former Nigerian ambassador to Thailand.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you very much for being with us here this evening.
Ranka Dede, we welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Any other royal father in the house? Please unmute yourself. Okay.
By the way, Your Royal Highness, is, if I'm not mistaken, your father was at one time our foreign minister. Am I right?
Correct, sir.
Ranka Dede, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It runs in the family, and I must then take the opportunity to thank the royal family of Zauzau for the contribution that both your father and your royal self, the contribution you've made to the development and growth of this country and our diplomacy. I thank you very much, Your Royal Highness.
Thank you, Excellency.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Before I move on, is there any other royal father in the house who wants to introduce themselves? Okay.
Good evening.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Well, I have a dilemma. I really don't want to call myself a traditional ruler because of reasons of protocol. But I could say I'm a traditional title holder from Kano, and I was a foreign service officer. By name, Ambassador Ahmed Umar, and I'm the Maliki of Kano. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Once again, in fact, once it gets to be our foreign affairs, then that is for all of us again to welcome you to this platform, and again also to thank you for your contribution to our diplomacy, and how, well, we can see now the contribution that our diplomacy is making to the traditional section of the elite in this country. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you on this program, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I also believe we have the former acting Secretary General of the OAU and now chairman of the Southeast Council of Traditional Rulers. Sir, if you're here, do you want to introduce yourself, sir? Please go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay. Okay. I will proceed, but once you unmute yourself, just let me know, sir, and Prof will recognize you as well, sir. Ambassador Lawrence Agubuzu.
All right. His Excellency and His Royal Highness, both in one, are very well known to me because he was also a member of the 2014 National Conference, and I can still see him sitting in the front row to the left of those of us who were sitting at the high table. And again, I would not say thank you very much for your contribution to the success of that conference, because I know that several of you were playing background roles each time we ran into problem to try to resolve the problem for us. So Your Excellency and Your Royal Highness, thank you very much for your presence, this evening. Well, since we have three now, let us then just immediately move on to the topic of your interest. Should traditional rulers have a role to play in our foreign policy, not as career officers, but as traditional rulers, given the fact that you can easily talk to each other without all the protocol that is involved? You could pass advice through the back door to those who are in positions of authority. Maybe any of our traditional rulers who may wish to pick up on that topic.
Please go ahead and unmute yourself, sir.
Emir Zazo.
Yes, Your Excellency.
I thought, having played both roles, career officer, now a traditional ruler of a very high rank for that matter, please give us your wisdom on this matter. How, because if you could push us along a line that you think will be useful to the country, these are ideas that we will pass on to those who are in authority about how to use our traditional rulers.
Well, sorry, Your Excellency. Just 2 seconds. I'm just passing immigration now.
Oh.
Hello? I'm at the airport. Hello? Just few minutes. Let me just move away from the noise here. Hello?
Go ahead, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Yes, Your Excellency. Okay, I can hear you now, please. Can you repeat the question, please?
What I was saying to Your Royal Majesty is that
yes,
you've been a career foreign service officer.
No, I'm not a career, but my late brother who passed on just 2 weeks ago was a career. But
okay.
I'm a non-career, yes, officer. But I said,
I see. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear about that sad news.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We wish him rest. You know.
Thank you.
In heaven. But what do you believe? What do you believe traditional rulers what role should they be playing in our foreign policy establishment and in helping us, especially when problems arise, in helping us to resolve these problems?
Well, Your Excellency, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. But from my own perspective, I feel that there are a number of roles that the traditional rulers can play. One, that is cementing the relationship between the host countries and also the Nigerian mission. Secondly, the issue of immigration. I believe the role the traditional rulers can play in addressing some of the challenges that we face in our foreign missions. You know, traditional rulers can play a vital role there. Case in point, even what is happening today in Niger Republic, you can see how the traditional institutions played vital role in trying to resolve the differences between the new leaders in the country and also the general public. So I am of the opinion that consultative role, by the traditional rulers, will certainly be of immense help in addressing some of these challenges through the platform of the traditional institution.
There was a time when Gaddafi, Colonel Gaddafi, was suggesting that all African traditional rulers should actually form a council of traditional rulers in Africa.
Yes.
What would you have been your attitude towards that proposal?
Hello? Oh, no.
Hello.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, please, can you repeat the question because it's not very clear here?
Oh, so sorry. I was saying,
Gaddafi.
at one time, Colonel
Yes.
Gaddafi, while of course
Yes.
he was still alive, was proposing that African traditional rulers should form a council and meet on a regular basis to help in the development of the continent. What would you have been your attitude towards that proposal?
Well, I think it's a very good proposal because if you can recall, well, we were not there, but in the parliamentary system of government which Nigeria had before, there was a council of traditional rulers, especially in the north here. And that council uh, gave the opportunity to all traditional rulers to meet regularly in Kaduna to discuss matters, of national importance. So I believe, restoring that or creating another platform that all traditional rulers within the country, as well as in the African continent, should come together, to be rubbing minds or sharing ideas will be a great idea. To be an opportunity, to understand the host countries better than just through the diplomatic window alone. So I think, that platform will assist the foreign service officers, in discharging their responsibilities well.
How about royal presence from Kano? What do you think?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. First of all, I was in the foreign service as a foreign service officer, and being in government, even at the presidency, and then now playing another different role, so to say, as practically an advisor to His Highness the Emir of Kano. I could say I just probably give a first-hand account on some of the real issues that I could say had a direct bearing in the way traditional rulers could intervene to advance the foreign policy of our country, when a way the traditional rulers is used to create that domestic consensus or understanding of domestic and even foreign policy by their subjects. I mean, in inverted comma. Between 1995 and 96, I had worked as a protocol officer to late Janasani Abacha. That year, during the Hajj season, we had a very serious problem with the Saudis, to the extent that Nigeria was practically barred from participating in that Hajj. And as you all know, Hajj is a very, very important and serious matter in the north. And that would have created very serious problems for the government. And I think I went personally to give advice to Jana Abacha that probably he needs to think of using the late Emir of Kano, our father, to intervene with the King of Morocco. And he quickly brought the idea, and a team was quickly formed, and I was a part of that team. And we went to Morocco. Immediately, the king received us, and this issue was tabled before him by late Emir Adobayero from the Nigerian government. And he never hesitated, and he expressed willingness to intervene, and which he did. Before our return back to Nigeria, he had contacted the Saudis, and they willingly agreed to lift that suspension from Nigeria from that year's Hajj. And we did this knowing the the closeness of relations between Morocco and the Saudi royal family. In addition to the closeness between the high regards King Hassan had for Nigeria, and particularly once you say it's a monarch coming to meet him, even though not a sovereign, that will have some soft approach on the matter. So before our return home, the matter had already been resolved. And immediately we arrived at Abuja, we went straight to brief General Abacha. And she said, the good news had already come. So this is, I think, one of the ways that the traditional institute could be used to resolve or to advance the foreign policy objectives of the government. There lately, just last year, there are so many examples. We were escorted His Highness to the Gambia, and he was there at the invitation of the Gambian Council of Elders. But while he was there, the government decided that he should be made the special guest of honor at the Gambian Independence Anniversary celebrations. And we were at the stadium and were very, very well received. After that, His Highness paid a courtesy call on the president. And most of the issues that the president raised with His Highness had to do with how to enhance our economic relations. And some of the aspirations that the Gambian government had, including security issues. He felt so free to discuss with His Highness, knowing the clout he has in Nigeria, and they felt that he represents an institution that will help advance the Gambian interest. And on coming back home, we compiled a report which was sent to government, and His Highness took that report and presented it to President Buhari. And the same year also, we went to Algeria, and also at the invitation of the Algerian government to attend an international conference on late philosopher Al-Magili, who really established the establishment of the Emirates system of administration in Kano. So, and he's an Algerian. So the government also was celebrating its independence anniversary and decided to coincide it with an international conference on the times and life of Al-Magili. So during the same period, President Taboun of Algeria received His Highness on a courtesy call. And truly 99% of the issues discussed bordered on foreign policy issues. And I'm sure they all know that he's a institution, but I believe they know he could influence or could mold whatever decision, foreign policy the government may want to shape. So coming back home, we did something. He spoke about the need for closer cooperation between Nigeria, Algeria, and South Africa. He dwelled so much on that and spoke about issue of the gas pipeline project on the Trans-Saharan Highway and some other very serious issues which I cannot even mention here. So on coming back home, we did the same thing. We compiled a report, presented to government, and also to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So this, I believe, government knows that the traditional institution, as it is today, of course, lacks the constitutional role in black and white, but the institution still plays a significant role in shaping domestic consensus on even domestic and foreign policy issues, just like this issue of Niger, where the traditional rulers all came together to really intervene, and they did so knowing the feelings of the people in the north. So I believe this is just some few examples I wish to give as a practitioner that I have seen with my own eyes how useful the traditional institution could be in assisting government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really grateful. So the examples that have been put before us. And that's simply, I'm glad, I can't remember now who raised this issue last week, that we should consult bring our royal fathers into this platform to educate us on the kind of roles that they can play. You know, earlier on, before we went on to this topic, I was talking about how under the British Constitution, there is no written constitution. And I think that we've just now had examples being given to us about how even within the African context, even though there's no charter that gives specific duties to our royal fathers, the traditional rulers, and yet they have in the past, and I'm sure there are many more examples, that can be shown and that can be brought to our attention, the useful roles that they have played in the past, depending upon the cultural setting, the cultural environment, which we can make use of. I think the beauty about diplomacy is the different factors you can pull upon without even drawing attention, without drawing publicity to it, and how, out of respect for each other, they can come up with the kind of resolution that will come useful to our country. I don't know, is there anybody else who wants to make yes, go ahead, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, I was going to just raise a question that someone sent direct to me here. And what this person is asking is that when we look at the Nigerian system, we have different classes of royal fathers. And to what extent does that impact how the international community relates with royal fathers when it comes to issues of national interest?
I'm not a royal father, so I don't know why you brought the camera on to me. But let me say
I'm just a messenger, sir.
Let me say a word or two about that. Africa is such a wide continent that while our emirs and the Sultan could help in facilitating solutions to problems arising from the north, you will also have someone of the caliber of the Ooni of Ife and the Alaafin of Oyo, who will have connections with nations in South America arising from historical factors, which you are all aware of. Brazil, the West Indies, the Barbados, and even though we have the royal fathers here from the south and they don't in Brazil, however, I mean, there was once I went with the Ooni of Ife to Brazil. And from Brazil, we went to Cuba And I was so surprised at the way and manner in which he was received. Obviously, they were familiar with their own history. They know they were dealing with someone with historical roots that they shared with him. And they, right from the president, the prime minister, even you wouldn't have believed that someone like the president of Cuba, Fidel Castro, would turn up at the airport to receive the Oni of Ife and pay him respect publicly at the airport before accompanying him to, where he would then stay. And I mean, at that point, I'm not even sure what our ambassador to Brazil felt, because the respect, the recognition was really an incredible one. So you could say then that, yes, we don't share the same culture, but respect for traditional rulers is a culture which we share all across Africa. And I remember again meeting Princess Elizabeth of Toro of Uganda when I was Director General NIA. And there was no doubt that the message that she brought from her country to our president carried substance than if, say, it had just been the foreign minister or a minister that brought it. But as I said, this is from views of a commoner on this platform.
Okay, sir, there's a comment in the chat, but before I go to that, sir, don't you have some sort of title from the North or something like that, sir?
Yes. Akin Adamawa.
Akin Adamawa. Okay, so you are a royal father too.
well. No. Mine is how will you put it? I technically under the culture, I should sit on the floor if the Lamido walks into the room, because I'm not, the royal blood is not there. It was conferred on me out of respect. So I shouldn't put on any airs. I say I'm a member of the royal family.
All right, sir. There is a question here from someone. This is MKO is the name that I've seen here. It says, building on Gaddafi's Council of African Traditional Rulers you just mentioned, what do you make of the religious differences among these rulers? For instance, the emir earlier mentioned was a Muslim. What about those that are neither Muslim nor Christian, the two religions that influence Africa's activities? Will these rulers agree to unite based on their ideological differences? I don't know if there are any of our royal fathers that are here who may want to respond to that question.
I can ask him. Now you've done your own.
Yes.
Any of our royal fathers want to respond to that question?
The Mayor Zao, are you still there with us?
He was going through immigration earlier, sir. So I'd
Okay.
expect that he may have some signaling issues. I don't know if there's any other one on here.
Ambassador Lawrence, is he with us now?
Ambassador Lawrence Femi Obishaki.
No. Ambassador Lawrence is the chairman of the Southeast Council of Traditional Rulers.
Lawrence Agubuzu. Agubuzu.
Yes. Is he with us?
I'm not sure.
No, I'm not sure, but I think that I've just seen Ambassador.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so let me just try to chip in a word here from what I have seen. I think the relationship within the traditional rulers is born out of historical issues, and also there's a hierarchy when, like, all the traditional rulers meet. Each person knows his own place in the hierarchy, whether you are from the north or from the south. I don't think issue of religion or other primordial issues really dictate or define how they relate. If I could remember, the late Oni of Ife, Obashijuade, was the closest person probably to late Emir Adobayaro. And all throughout their lives, it has been so. So I think it's a relationship based on mutual respect and also mutual recognition about service to their people. Thank you.
Your Excellency, let me also add a few things here. This is the Emir of Zazo. Regarding the relationship with other African states, if you look at the Lamido of Adamawa, up till tomorrow, he is still the traditional ruler in charge of some parts of the Cameroon. They report to him up to today, despite the plebiscite, but they still accord respect and recognition to the Lamid of Adamawa up to today. And equally, the Emir of Arugungu, there's some a relationship between the people of Niger Republic and the people of Kebbi and especially Arugungu, Emirates. So there's that relationship that still exists, between the neighboring countries as well as some of the traditional institutions. Equally, Katsina and Daura too, their relationship with Niger Republic. So I believe, it's a very good relationship that still exists despite the demarcation, by the British, of different countries as at today. And we still relate with those countries. So reaching out to them, as strategic partners in helping to shape the diplomatic relations, with their respective countries is something, that Nigerian government should leverage on, the relationship of the traditional institutions in Nigeria and other, neighboring countries as well. Thank you.
Sorry, Saifa, I may also add, can I add just a few words?
Yes, please.
I also mentioned I forgot to mention, like the Buckingham Palace, the special relationship it has with the Kano Palace. To the extent that there is a very popular story being told that at her maiden visit to the north, and she went to visit the emir then, and she insisted, after the protocol, the ceremonial protocol, she wanted to go inside, right inside the inner chamber of the palace. This is normally a place only for women. Of course, she was a woman. In going, the security insisted that they must go with her, and said, Emir said politely said, no, that's against our tradition. So the Queen Elizabeth obliged, and one of her security aides later was quoted as saying that probably it was the only time they allowed the Queen to be without a security oversight. So that goes to say, up till now, because of historical reasons, up till now, that close relationship is always existing between Buckingham Palace and Kanu. And during her visit, during President Obasanjo's time, I think it was only the Emir of Kano she requested to see. She wanted to go to Kano, but unfortunately, for some reasons, the visit was cancelled. So she requested to see him in Abuja, and there they discussed a lot of bilateral issues. Thank you.
Your Royal Highness, Emir Zaza, supposing we had a problem, say, with South Africa, and we were to ask you to go and meet the Zulu king.
Yes.
How do you think the differences in culture will play out? In fact, this is not just an academic question, because during the time we had a problem with South Africa, the Zulus were those who were attacking our people in Johannesburg, and so on. So if we were to ask you to go and have a war with the king of the Zulus, how do you think that interaction will play out?
Well, I can assure you, Your Excellency, it will be a successful journey, definitely, because of the mutual respect across the globe that the traditional institutions have, with each other. We will approach him, the Zulu king, right? Inform him that the Emir of Zozo is coming as head of Nigerian, delegation to his own domain, and I believe, he'll oblige. And then through that platform, we discuss in our own language, in our own ways, in the traditional ways, on how to resolve those issues, which might not necessarily be possible if, someone differently, approaches them for such situations. And if you can recall, I know you are very much aware of that. Like, if I can speak, for most of the diplomats that came from the north, in the early days of Nigerian foreign mission, you'll see that most of them, they came from the traditional system. Significant number of them, at the early stage of Nigerian foreign service. So, and those values, those core values, from home, at least most of them demonstrated it in their various respective, in their various duty posts. So I still strongly believe, that reaching out to countries, through the traditional institutions will play a very vital role, especially in Africa here.
Thank you very much, Your Highness.
Yes, sir.
I have Ambassador Igali. You've got your hand raised. Do you want to go first, sir?
Okay, thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm sorry I am joining a bit late. I had some challenge, and I do not know if the apology has been made on behalf of Sultan Anoni of Ife. They promised to join us next week. They have a commitment that makes it difficult to be with us tonight. Now, my contribution will be to the fact that I had the good fortune of serving in the Scandinavia as Nigeria's ambassador Actually, that was my last outing as an ambassador. And 3 of the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, have been ruled by constitutional monarchies. And it's only Finland that has a republican status. Now, when I presented my papers to the King of Sweden, I got encouraged by his openness. Normally, they time you to say you are going to spend only 20 minutes with the king. And we ended up spending 1.5 hours because the King of Norway, Sweden was very curious about the fact that we have kings and we have royalty in Nigeria. And I took time to explain to him what is the stand of these monarchies. And he explained to me that, do you know that we still have dukes, we still have very close contact with the royalty in Europe among ourselves, apart from the fact that we're all related one way or the other. We play active roles quietly behind the scene. And that when there are knotty issues in diplomacy and external relations, the prime minister tasks the king to deploy people of royal standing who can go to especially the countries like Spain, Belgium, Luxembourg, Britain, which was then in the EU, and so on, that have royal families, and also even to some of the political authorities. And most times they enjoy that respect because they're coming from the palace. And so with that, I put the same question to the King of Norway when I had opportunity to meet him. And he said, yes, he travels quite often to intermediate on so many other global issues that sometimes people think that it's only his cousins, Prince, who is, by the way, second cousin, Prince Philip, late Prince Philip, and King Charles, his younger nephew, that are involved in informal soft diplomacy, but that he does quite a lot and went over and over. The Crown Prince of Sweden has done a lot in sports and all the roles he played, especially when there are conflicts. So I think, sir, that this is an area that we need to critically examine. I have been following some of the conversations. I couldn't contribute where I was, but I followed. And I think that Nigeria, will derive a lot of benefits if we find ways. This is your last question. When we had the issue of xenophobia in South Africa, the problem was caused by Buthelezi, who just died. And then the president of South Africa reached out to President Jonathan for Nigeria not to react. And I was aware that President Jonathan, unfortunately, Nigeria reacted without presidential permission. And President Jonathan was looking for somebody to go to South Africa and do some level of fan-mending because they appealed to him not to react. And the first thought that came was looking for a prominent traditional ruler to go and speak to Buthelezi to let him know that, look, these things you're doing are not right. We are the same people. We have played a major role in your country. And then, so I think that my conclusion would be that in Europe, they are doing this quietly. And I think that this is an area, sir, that we can explore. Fortunately, we have very enlightened people who are in monarchy in Nigeria at this time. Many of them haven't also served, even in the foreign service. The Oba of Benin, for example, I took over from him in Sweden as ambassador. And he was there 3 years as ambassador. Before then, he was in Angola as ambassador. And from Sweden, he went to Italy. So he was to join this meeting too. And I understand that by next week, we'll send somebody to join us to further shed some light on some of the kind of things that traditional rulers can do. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. There is Professor Akinyemi, just to ask before I call on Ambassador Lawrence Femi Obishaki, given the fact that we're going to have more royal fathers next week, I was going to take one more question today, and then next week we'll have a wider discussion on the topic, and just to seek your view on that, sir.
Well, it's if our royal fathers present here still have contributions to make,
yes, sir.
Let us take that contribution so that at least we can make sure, or they will make sure that we value their presence.
Yes, sir.
And I was going to say actually to Ambassador Igali that it's a pity that they didn't get in touch with me when they wanted to talk to Prince Butulezi. We were very, very close. Okay, I will again mention that, I'm not from the royal family, but Prince Butulezi came to Nigeria when I was Director General NI, and it was part of a complex game of diplomacy that Nigeria was playing, because the ANC again was proving rather stubborn. So they decided that they will invite Prince Butulezi to come to Nigeria. But as these things tend to happen, and all you ambassadors here will know, in order to provide a cover for the government, I was the one as DGNI who was now asked to invite him, which of course I did, and I got pilloried by the press for once again, creating problems, diplomatic problems for the government in building a relationship with someone that we shouldn't go near at all. And I couldn't explain that I was doing my job. But that was when Prince Butulezi and I met. And one of the traditional rulers we took him to was the then Emir of Zauzau. We went to Zaria, and I took him there. And I still have the pictures in my album. And he just to watch how he related to the Emir, and they started talking about their background, cultural background, and what have you. It was fascinating. But since then, I became a friend of Prince Butulezi. I'm not sure that the problem between him, the Inkanta, and the ANC was ever resolved before he died. He told me it was all a misunderstanding. Some of the things he said I can't repeat on this program, because he made me to understand that his break from the ANC to come to form the Inkanda Freedom Party was done on the advice of some of the leaders of independent African countries in that area, who thought it would be useful And yet, when problem then started, they abandoned him. But I just wanted to say that there are times we commoners have relationship with the royal family to our advantage.
Yes. Ambassador Lawrence Femi Obishaki, you had your hand raised earlier. Do you want to make your comment now, sir?
Well, let me thank Prof and all that have spoken, including the royal blood, who also down the diplomatic, guard. I really enjoyed it because my interest mostly in diplomacy lies in the area of culture, being a language man, first and foremost. I just want to say we have a lot of experience of it in the South. Two, the influence of the royal fathers. As Prof has said, the Ooni of Ife is regarded as a deity in Brazil. Thank God Ambassador Lewu was my ambassador in Brazil today, served in Brazil. And I found one thing very interesting is that those people who were descendants of the African taken there during the slave trade still cherish our culture so much. In fact, more than us here. And if you want to really learn the typical Yoruba original one, because I made research on it, they still maintain the words that they took with them in the 16th, 17th century, words that we have lost here. And when I was to be the ambassador of Nigeria in Benin, I had very interesting, encounters with the royal fathers there. The day I got to Cotonou, I was received by 23 obas from Benin Republic. And then, of course, we were not from royal family directly, but we learned our cultures very well. I went to the foremost Oba, Yoruba Oba in Benin, who is the Oba.
Number 3-8.
It was the Oba of Ketu, the Ala Ketu. It's supposed to be the first son of Oduduwa. And they spoke everything in the drum. Of course, I danced. They did everything. Now, this thing came very handy to me. When one day I went to the Oba of the Aozu of the farm in Abomi, they were very helpful. When we had life-threatening situations, for example, when some uniformed custom officers said they were having wedding anniversary in Kebbi and saw that Benin roads were better, so they just moved into Benin Road and they were driving and they were caught at 2 a.m. And they wanted to execute them because they thought they were Boko Haram. But I had to use my links with the Obas and the Emirs influence in Nigerian Benin parts of this, the Emirate. They are so effective and direct. Actually, once some of these royal fathers speak, in fact, there's no need for any diplomatic legworks anymore because they are revered and they are respected. But unfortunately, Nigeria doesn't seem to have leverage on this. For instance, Brazil, who were the first to learn Portuguese language in West of Ife, and the agreement was that the Brazilians will be learning Yoruba here, while we go there to learn Brazil. UNISOF has a house in Salvador, in Bahia, which is the most typical Yoruba state there, where they still speak Yoruba, the Samba and everything. But Nigeria has not reciprocated. And how much we will gain from Brazil, a practically developed country now. I think it is good that our royal fathers are here. They need to collaborate, North and South, to the advantage of Nigeria by taking advantage of what we have outside Nigeria. Really, really, I think we have much to gain by involving the royal fathers in our diplomacy. After all, diplomacy protocol started from the palace. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I've got, I think it's Ambassador Akinyemi. Please go ahead and unmute yourself, sir. Ambassador Akinyemi.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Well, I'm not Your Royal Highness, but I'm close to the courts of the Awujale of Ijebu land as an Otumba Olumodon of Ijebu land. And I can vouch to the fact that the royal fathers, the traditional rulers, have an important role to play, and they can play a very important role in foreign affairs. I had the opportunity of inviting Awujale to Moscow, Russia, when I was there. And Ambassador Shinade was my boss. And at that time, we were having a series of meetings with the host government. He invited Awujale to make certain statements, just to, a goodwill message. The Russians were very impressed. I mean, that was Yeltsin's Russia, not Putin's. He was very impressed. So I believe that the royal fathers could play that prominent role if they are given the authority, the opportunity. And I will take this along to the fact that when I was in the AU, and I'm aware of what Gaddafi was trying to do, but his was more of grandeur. It is the beauty of because he doesn't see himself anyway as a head of state. So that didn't really sink. But I believe that time is now for more introspection on customary governance. That the panel of the wise that has not really done much as part of the African peace and security architecture must be replaced by a traditional council instituted within the AU structure, and to now replicate in African countries to increase their role in governance, like customary governance, or what I call neutral democracy. That, to my mind, will increase the role across Africa of traditional or royal fathers in foreign affairs. What is important is given, first of all, to really institutionalize that role within the African Union and spread it across Africa. And probably that will be able to get African countries to imbibe that culture, to replace the panel of the wise that has not really done much in terms of the APSA, the African Peace and Security Architecture. These are my thoughts, Prof. I don't know whether you agree with me that time is now for an introspection on the increasing role of traditional rulers in governance, and thereafter, the foreign affairs. My thoughts, sir.
Well, I mean, the Emir Zauza is here. Who am I to disagree with a proposal to institutionalize, a council of traditional rulers? I agree with you.
Thank you, Excellent.
To tell you the truth, I had an open mind when we first started this, because I kept thinking, I kept thinking, what would they say? What would we do? And so on. But as experiences were now brought out and put on the table, I became persuaded that at least that's one institution we haven't used. And the respect that we show our traditional rulers all over Africa, we could tap into that in resolving difficulties and in resolving problems. Well, perhaps we can go on then with our regular meeting. Our royal fathers will see what we do every week. And then next week, when we have His Eminence, the Sultan, and His Royal Majesty, the Oni, we can then pick up from where we have left off. Because in fact, they are probably the ones we will gently push forward to take whatever recommendations, we have, to take them to the villa. And out of respect for them, our president will show respect to those recommendations.
Yes, sir. Just a final word. I can see a message from Ambassador Emir of Zazu. He's leaving now, been called up to board. Do you want to wish him safe journey, sir?
Thank you very much.
On behalf of all of us, I wish you a safe journey.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much.
We
and
look
I'm honored
forward
to be on this program.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you very much for the kind words, Your Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Majesty.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir. Professor Akinyemi, it is 7:24. Well, here in the UK, I think it's almost 8:30 for you there in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Should we pick up next week?
Okay. We've had a good outing. And
yes.
we must thank Ambassador Igali, who had anchored the preparation for this on our behalf.
Yes.
I mean, it's funny because I've been in touch with him on other issues, and we never really made any reference to this. He never told me how far he had gone. As I told you, until about 5 minutes before we started, before I knew that he had been able to tap into his own links. He still hasn't told us if he's a traditional ruler. He hasn't told us. Maybe because, it may involve his serving brandy to his president or the academy, I mean.
Given
not the other president.
Given the picture he sent us to use for the academy, sir, and the hat he had on, I suspect he must be a traditional ruler.
Well, okay. We are clear.
All right, sir. So next week would be back, and as we've had, the Oni of Ife and the Sultan would most likely join us next week as we discuss this topic a lot further. Thank you very much to everyone that has stayed so far this evening. And Prof, thank you once again. And sorry for taking you over time. Good night, everyone. See you next week.